It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NFL.
Here is a toss. And on the run into the end zone, diving Malik Washington for the touchdown. What a drive.
Tua takes a snap, pulls it back out, throws it, touchdown. It's Tyreek Hill.
The Dolphins beat the Rams 23-15. Again, your field goal attempt rule is violated. PK broken, shattered, snapped 8 field goals in this game. Somebody, touchdowns, please. We're begging you.
Yeah, I was bored by the game. I was flicking around.
You had to be. Everybody had to be. You had to be a hardcore Ram or Dolphin fan to lock down on that thing. That was difficult at best. Miami's 3-game losing streak is over. They're 3-6, and they're a game and a half out of the playoffs. They got their quarterback. I guess they have hope. I'm not sure I understand it, but
I think they
sure.
got Tua. I don't know.
You're a game and a half out.
Tua.
Just got to catch the Broncos, who are 5-5, because now we have 7 playoff teams. So everybody's got a shot, I guess. John Robinson, who coached the Rams, USC, and UNLV, passed away at the age of 89. Complications from pneumonia, according to the press release set out by USC. Got to have a few memories of him, PK, given your time in Los Angeles. He was a huge figure in football for a long time in that city.
No question about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Niners coach Kyle Shanahan said he addressed the situation from Sunday where Deebo Samuel got into it with the long snapper, Tabor Pepper, and kicker Jake Moody. They squashed it. So all is well now.
That's usually what happens. Usually what we're told is what happens when these things occur.
Niners are a half game behind the Cardinals in the division race in the NFC West. The Seattle Seahawks waived leading tackler Tyrell Dodson in a surprising move. They're coming off a bye. They started well. They've lost 5 of the last 6. Apparently a shakeup was needed. I'm sure all is well now.
Yeah, I was shocked, man. I couldn't understand it. I still don't understand it for the life of me.
Do you like international football games? Early morning start times, unusual start times. The NFL already playing in Mexico and in England and in Germany. They are targeting Australia, possibly holding a regular season game down under as early as 2026. They've talked about maybe moving the Pro Bowl there, too, and opening an NFL Academy.
What Pro Bowl?
Well, they've turned the Pro Bowl into like a celebration of, drills, skill tests. They're also looking at Ireland. They went to Brazil this year. Spain could be in the future. And Roger Goodell would like to see 16 international games. This tells you everybody could be playing an international game every year. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college football.
There's a video on social media of Jake Pope seemingly celebrating with some Ole Miss fans on the field after the game. Just wanted to see if you had seen that and what your reaction to it was.
Yeah, what an idiot. Just stupid. I didn't see it till today, but he's embarrassed about it. He's upset about it. That's obviously a childhood friend of his. He grew up and played with there at Buford and knows him, hadn't seen him in forever, but just not real smart. But to be honest with you, I don't have time to waste energy on that. My focus is on Tennessee.
Georgia coach Kirby Smart and one of his players celebrating with Ole Miss fans who turned out to be high school teammates. Can't look jubilant in defeat, PK. Can't be happy in defeat.
No, never accept it.
SEC fined Ole Miss $350,000 and LSU $250,000 for incidents involving their fans' behavior on Saturday. Ole Miss's fine goes directly to the University of Georgia because the fans stormed the field. LSU's money, that was because fans threw debris on the field, and it'll be going into the league's postgraduate scholarship program. $250,000 and $350,000, and I guess next time it's $500,000 if they storm the field again. So
Marcus Debris.
Nice.
That'd be tough, man. Chuck debris on the field. Anybody ask Debris how he feels?
That'd be Marcus Dupree.
Oh.
That's a 30-year-old poll. Good work, though. Maybe 40, actually.
40.
Yeah, 40. Yeah.
Got a nice, what do they call those documentaries?
30 for 30 on ESPN.
Yeah. Interesting story of that young man.
Nebraska named former West Virginia and Houston head coach Dana Holgorsen as the Huskers' offensive coordinator for the rest of the season. Matt Rule made the announcement yesterday after Holgorsen had recently arrived in Lincoln to consult. He'd been a consultant for TCU, so coaches can't change midseason, but consultants can, and then they can become coaches. Man, all the rules about what was okay and what's not okay, they're changing all the time.
Was that a rule?
Probably not a rule as much as more a standard of behavior, I guess.
Was it a Matt Rule?
The Matt Rule is free association with names now. Nebraska started 5-1. They've lost 3 straight. They're looking for answers. Need another win to get bowl eligible. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Utah Jazz.
It's always great when you have bigs that can pass. Gives you an added layer to your offense. And I thought that Kyle did a good job of that tonight. He's very comfortable with the ball in his hands. He's a good ball handler. It gives us a lot of optionality on offense, especially when he's out there with John and Lowry. You know, we can put him in a variety of spots. He can space the floor some. He can play around the elbow area. As a facilitator, it's definitely a luxury to have.
That's Will Hardy on the bonuses he gets when he puts Kyle Filipowski out on the floor.
Look at that, all the luxuries the Jazz have these days.
Jazz are 2-7. They're hosting the Phoenix Suns tonight. Can the Jazz win back-to-back games for the first time? And how many of you will be unhappy if they do?
Me.
Bizarro times. Where do the Suns' injuries sit, Mr. Phoenix? We know Kevin Durant is the headliner. He's got the calf injury, so he's out for a couple weeks. No Kevin Durant tonight. Nurkic?
No Walter Davis.
Nice. Thanks for the update. Kevin Johnson isn't walking through that door?
I don't know. I don't know what KJ's up to.
Who are the twins? Was it Van Arsdale twins? If I got the right name?
I like the Barbie twins.
Stop. Pre-game at 6, tip-off at 7 tonight here on The Zone. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NBA.
The rebound, Garland out front, Mitchell. Straightaway 3. Perfect! Donovan Mitchell with a 25-point first half.
Still does Alexander. Working the dribble, angles left on the perimeter, 2 minutes left. Steps back, fires an angle left three-pointer that looks, and it is! Cha-ching, Thunder Moneyball. Shea rises and rips the cords with the tray.
Paul taking it right side. Bounce pass wide of Wemby. Trying to track it down. Actually, Castle comes up with it. Now 3 to shoot. Castle at the shot clock buzzer will try a layup, and it's off the rim. No good. Follow slam is good for Victor Wembanyama.
Wembanyama, 34 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists. Spurs with a 20-point win over the Kings. They beat them 116-96. San Antonio flirting with 500. They're 5-6 right now. They get that W. The Cleveland Cavaliers, a perfect 12-0. Donovan Mitchell, 36 points as they beat the Chicago Bulls 119-113. This is the best start since the Warriors went 24-0. Back in 2015 and 16. Does it make you think any different about the balance of power in the East, or the champs are the champs until Cleveland proves otherwise?
No, I don't think Boston is the dominant team. This is not the Warriors that you speak of. So, yeah, I think sure. Yeah, I think Cleveland's got a good team. If they can stay healthy, yeah.
Staying healthy is a problem in the NBA. There have been a lot of injuries. Oklahoma City just lost Chet Holmgren, obviously. But the Thunder, 9-2, best in the West. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a 45-point game as the Thunder beat the Clippers 134-128. So the Thunder, a half game better than the idle Suns and Warriors.
Nurkic is listed as questionable for tonight's
Questionable.
game.
So that one's up in the air for the Jazz. Damian Lillard is in NBA's concussion protocol. He will not play tonight against Toronto. Milwaukee's still without all-star guard Chris Middleton. So, big names across the league.
I thought Middleton was a forward.
Oh, I thought him as a shooting guard, small forward. Positionless basketball. It's a gray area.
Well, why'd you assign him a position then?
In the all-star game, they listed him as a guard, and so he's listed here as all-star guard. But Debatable. Debate it. DJ and PK.
Hashtag college basketball.
Scrimmages masquerading as games continue in college basketball. Utah will host Queens University at the Huntsman Center tonight. Tip-off set for 7 o'clock on ESPN+. Utah 2-0, expected to go 3-0. PK, a lot of people out there have never heard of Queens University, and you are regaling Jake and I with tales of Queens University. You have a lot more knowledge than the average person when it comes to this school and this program.
Yeah, my friend's son, Jackson Pollard, is on the team. He went to Lone Peak, played at Salt Lake Community, and is on that team. And I think that's probably, I don't know this for sure, but I think that's probably why they scheduled Utah tonight, BYU tomorrow. And, you know, the thing about it is that his grandfather was a player of note in the 50s for Utah, Pearl Pollard. May have heard of Poison Pearl Pollard. His son Scott played in the NBA for a number of years.
I've certainly heard of Scott Pollard.
Yeah.
I only heard of Pearl Pollard because of Scott Pollard, and I had no idea the nickname Pearl. Poison, I mean. Sorry.
Okay.
I did not know. I didn't know that was the nickname.
Yeah.
I know the Utes were great in the 60s, but they were pretty good in the 50s, too.
Yeah.
The banners tend to be about the 40s and the 60s, but I think they were Sweet 16, Elite 8 teams there in the 50s. They were pretty good.
And so his grandfather played at Utah from here. His dad, Alan, played a couple years at BYU before transferring out, so he'll play in the same field, or court, I should say, that his dad played on. So there's a little connection there. And Utah is trying to build some momentum here to see what they can do. They got a bunch of new guys, and we know BYU has got a bunch of new guys too, and they're trying to do the same thing, find themselves a little bit in what some people call the preseason. I call it the non-conference, before the rugged Big 12 starts, and they're going to need that. So there's opportunities to continue to progress along the line for when the more difficult games follow. And Queens is just Atlantic Sun, which is a Division I conference.
Right. I had assumed that Queens was New York, but Queens is Charlotte, the Queen City.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Southern Utah's taking on Bethesda tonight. That's on ESPN Plus at 6:30. Florida Gators coach Todd Golden asked for patience with the inquiry by the school into allegations of sexual harassment and stalking levied against him. Golden has acknowledged the inquiry and said he's considering defamation claims as the situation plays out, and he continues to coach the Gators.
That's a wild story, man.
I know.
That really is something. You know, I don't know that I'd be talking much if I were him. I might just say silence is golden. Todd
Golden, I see what you did there. Really working with the names here.
The former USF coach, for those of you who may remember, got when BYU was in the West Coast Conference. Got them pretty good and then took off to Florida.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Dodger star Shohei Ohtani is a finalist for the National League MVP award, which would make him an MVP winner in both leagues because he won it twice in the American League when he was with the Angels. Francisco Lindor, Ketel Marte are the other finalists. It would be stunning if Ohtani didn't win this, but I guess they have to go through the whole, you're a finalist, and then we'll make the announcement.
That's what they've decided to do to draw some more attention to it.
AL MVP finalist, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah, I think it'll be Ohtani and Judge.
What is Trending is brought to you by Shamrock Plumbing. There's no job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. Coming up 8 o'clock, Frank Dolce, former Ute quarterback, will join us. 8:30, Shehan Jaraja will join us, national college football writer for CBS Sports. A story last week out of CBS Sports, and Shehan Jaraja wrote it about how BYU, 9th. Why 9th? Why so low? So what's the anticipation for tonight's revealing of the new rankings? Do they move up to 8th, to 7th? What will happen? We'll talk with Shehan Jaraja about that coming up. It's also a Utah Jazz Ticket Tuesday, so we'll give away a pair of tickets to see the Jazz and the San Antonio Spurs on November 26th at the Delta Center. That is all ahead. And the question of the day is next. Stay with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present...
This is JJ and Alex.
The only place I like to drink ginger ale is on an airplane. Other than that,
isn't that the truth?
Give me the ginger ale.
For some reason on a plane, it's like, ooh, ginger ale sounds great now.
Give me a ginger ale. Also, when you come back through, could you give me the Bloody Mary mix? Not a Bloody Mary. Give me the mix.
What do you do with the mix?
You just drink it because it's basically like spicy V8.
Oh.
I want to talk to a stranger with bad breath on the plane.
I don't have time to dive into why you like spicy V8.
I'm telling you, because it's
Something's wrong
low
with
in
you.
sodium.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 6. Presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hot Takes or Toast is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen with 30 years of serving Utah. Question of the morning. Are we seeing a change into the guard in the rivalry? The Cougars undefeated. 2 wins over Utah in the last 4 years. I know there are people who want it to happen. I know there are people who believe it's happening. But is it actually happening? Dan, who lists himself as an Aggie fan, is trying to bring some level of reasonable to this. He says, I would characterize it as a leveling of the rivalry. Interesting.
Well, that's changing.
That is changing. Leveling is different after Utah's won 9 in a row.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're in the same league, and they weren't, so a leveling. Wyatt doesn't even like the question. After 2 games, question mark?
Well, it's more than just the games.
Wyatt wants more data.
It's the other stuff that's gone into it. The fact that they were independent for all that time, and now they're not. And they've been recruiting as a member of the Big 12 now for 4 years. Because they had a 2-year lead-in.
They had notice.
Yes.
And they could.
And so that means, especially with kids with missions, that the players that they signed immediately at that time were never going to play independent if they went on missions.
You will be a Big 12 player upon your return.
Right. So I think there is more data there, which makes the question intriguing.
Josh, yes. Utah hasn't won the game in 5 years, and you can see it's making Witt and Harlan crack.
Well, I mean, they haven't
They
played
didn't play in
years,
3
so
of the 5 years.
A little misleading there, and I hate misleadments. So you have to put that in contextual perspective, which is, I mean, it's the story of my life. You can put that on my tombstone. He put it in contextual perspective.
Matthew says, no, this year's a one-off for Utah football. But overall, BYU gets the edge until Utah basketball figures itself out.
We're not talking about basketball.
We are not, but he wanted to.
Well, if we're including basketball, then the edge is ginormous.
Enormous. Earl says, BYU fan here, not a change into the guard. That would take winning about 3 of the next 4. But we are certainly on an even playing field now. So he's more of a leveling.
If you won 3 of the next 4, then the guard would have been changed. We're asking, is it changing? We're not asking, has it changed? Is it in the process?
Dennis wants to take shots. Pac-12 is garbage. Big 12 has proven to be a big leap. Utah should beg the Mountain West to take him back.
Well, the Pac-12 doesn't exist, so what are we talking about?
It's about to look a lot like the Mountain West. I think Dennis just wants to take shots and see if he can fire people up. Strange Brew says, yes, Utah is done. They so poo-poo.
They done, huh? I don't think they're done. I'm not willing under any circumstance to go to that level of hyperbole.
Chris says more shots. It'll take Utah a few more years to adjust to the physical play and recruiting it requires to compete at a P4 level. You can tell by the Utes record it's a big jump for them.
Now would he narrowed it down? It's a P4.
P4.
So they've got to make that jump. Well, this is the first year that BYU is recruiting to a P4 level too. Everyone, it's their first year.
Because it was P5 a year ago.
Yeah.
Vernon says, yes, the changing of the guard. It is now more competitive than it ever was. And the Utes, such as athletic director Mark Harlan, must accept an L once in a while. The rivalry is alive and well, and it's better than it's ever been. If you can't accept the L, The U is pathetic.
Well, then if you're accepting an L every once in a while, then the guard hasn't changed because that means you have W's more often than not. If it's just simply every once in a while. I use their own words to incriminate them.
Randy says, no change in the guard. I think the talent level is equaling out. It'll be a heated battle every year. Neither team will go on long winning streaks in the rivalry now. That is a change, though. You just had a long winning streak.
Yeah, but I think those days are gone. BYU was at a distinct advantage, and conversely, the Utes had a substantial advantage. And it was substantial. You know, Whittingham likes to talk about, why would I give the other team a competitive advantage to let them know who the starting quarterback is, which means every time you know the starting quarterback, you have a competitive advantage. Well, that theory is false. It simply is not true. If you give the team an advantage, that means if you know who the starting quarterback is, like the Utes have a distinct advantage this week because they know Sanders is going to be the starting quarterback.
Pretty good bet on that, yes.
Right, and Rose has some issues here, and we'll see what happens there. I'll work on that today. That's false. Just simply knowing who the quarterback is does not give you an advantage. That's ridiculous. But here, the fact that they were in the Pac-12 and BYU was independent, that was a distinct advantage. It was
no way to argue it.
Yeah.
There it is.
And the results showed.
It sounded like an advantage when it happened. The coach said it was an advantage. I mean, Kyle said as soon as they were announced as part of the Pac-12, recruiting changed. They were getting indoors they couldn't get into in the past.
And
they
you can
started
get
winning
indoors.
the rivalry.
That's better than being outside. If you're indoors, being on the street ain't going to get you anywhere.
Hard to get the kid to sign when you're just sitting in the car on the curb and you can't get in the front door.
Indoors. Shut the front door every time he left. But that has changed now. And I think that for BYU, that was especially detrimental because the facts are that they need to collect as much of the LDS talent as they can. That has to be and will always be their bread and butter. And if it's weakened, then that weakens them. Jay Hill was saying, who was he talking on to? There's some national program, I can't remember now. He said that if we got all the LDS talent, recognizing that that's just in theory and it will never be
happen.
Right. But he was just talking. The point he was making is there's enough LDS football talent, particularly with the Polynesians now, that if you got all of them, you would be really good. So they need to scoop up as many of them as possible. And it's clear that Utah has taken, not stolen, I was going to say stolen, but that's not true. They've taken a significant chunk of high-quality LDS talent. And others have, but Utah being I would think if you added it up, they would have the most. And it makes sense why they would have the most. They've got LDS guys on their staff. They're in the LDS stronghold, blah, blah, blah. And they're good. Then they send guys to the NFL, particularly at positions that Polynesians tend to have the body types to play. Not all, because they can play whatever position, but a lot of them are bigger and can play in the interiors, and Utah just sends a flood of guys there. So if I'm a kid in California, Arizona, wherever, and Utah comes calling and I'm LDS, I absolutely take a look. Doesn't mean I'm going to go there, but I strongly consider it because they know what they're doing as far as developing and getting guys to the NFL where you can make life-changing money.
Tends to get people's attention.
Yeah, it has to.
Fame, glory, cash.
Yeah, and good times while you're there and develop you, right?
Those are all positives, and that's why their place in the college football world has been changing.
Yeah, and you can see why the LDS kid would be interested. By no means is it something that you just take for granted that I'm going to go to BYU. Nothing against BYU. If you end up going to BYU, good for you. But the sophistication now of the recruit and his family, I think, is widespread across the board that they know they need to check out all their options. And it doesn't even really pertain geographically. It's why a kid like Cole Bishop can be down in Georgia and ends up in Utah, plays his 3 years, and ends up, I think, a second-round pick, and is over there in Buffalo now because the sophistication of a kid like Bishop, his high school coaches, people of influence around him, including his family. This is something, son, you need to check out because you play a position that they regularly pipeline to the NFL. And he does. He comes here, plays in 2 Rose Bowls, and away he goes.
And it's just weird that he didn't even know, and one coach tells him, and, man, the antenna goes up, and he gets dialed in, and it all happens.
Right. That's the sophistication. I'm not sure that happens 25 years ago, 30 whatever year ago.
Right.
And so he plays in 2 bowl games in his college career. Both of them are the Rose Bowl. I would say that's a smashing success for that young man. He made, without question, the most correct decision he could have made for himself.
Go to Utah, Rose Bowl, straight to the NFL, high draft pick.
I believe he sat out the Vegas Bowl.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. And so he's in the rotation right from the start. And then you got to look at it, too. You know, if he was coming in and they had, like, 2 sophomores that were looking to be there for a couple years, maybe he doesn't come. But he checks out the situation and goes across the country. It's same thing with Huntley, Moss, and the other one, Simpkins, Florida kids, that black kids coming over here. The sophistication of those young men and the people around them
that you should pick up and leave Florida and everything you know and go to Utah.
Continues to amaze me. What a phenomenal story that is, that they go way out there, speaking from the Florida perspective, and then have great success. I believe they all got their degrees, did everything they're supposed to do, and 2 of them are obviously in the NFL. And I don't know that you have that all that many years ago, but that's what recruiting is now. And that's what's cool about it, man, is that kids will search out and give you a serious look. And that's great for both schools, that they can go wherever. I mean, BYU's got the Alexander kid. He came from Georgia, freshman right now, and we'll see if we hear more from him in the coming seasons. And even like a JoJo Phillips, California. I wonder, when Phillips was being recruited, as he's developing into a player, at what point does BYU come on his radar? I'm guessing that he's not his buddies, hey, when he's in the 10th grade, hey, you want to go out? Go do whatever? No, man, BYU's on. I got to watch him. I doubt he's saying that. But yet, the circumstances unfold, and here's your options, and he chooses this one. That's awesome.
David says, and this is actually the closest to my answer to this question, who knows? Home field can have its advantages, yearly recruiting, the transfer portal, NIL, etc. You never know.
So you're going to answer who knows?
College football.
I can't believe you would answer that.
I know. College football is too volatile. If I told you I knew, you would just list all the predictions I made in the last 2 years that I got wrong.
Why do you even get out of bed? You're beaten down before 6 a.m. every day.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So what if I say that? Then you come back at me even stronger.
Yeah, I might. But in my heart of hearts, I would know you're right. College football is too volatile. You can say you know what's going to happen. This year's Big 12 poll is a great example. We know the top of the league is at the bottom, and the bottom of the league is at the top. Last year's poll, West Virginia was picked last year, and they went 6-3 after being picked to finish last in the conference. And we've seen teams that are good crash. Cincinnati, Michigan, TCU, Florida State. Just because you're great doesn't mean you're going to sustain it.
You have no knowledge of that.
I have no knowledge of that.
You have no knowledge of what West Virginia's recruiting base is and how's it going, who the recruiters are, how personal they are. So to bring in West Virginia, who gives a flying crap? You have no knowledge of them. You couldn't name 2 coaches on their staff.
You're right.
Right. So here, if you have more knowledge, you have more information, and you can make more educated guesses. That's the whole point that I just made with this recruiting kids from Georgia and California and wherever. The more knowledge you have, the more information. So don't give me West Virginia, TCU, and Florida.
And to your point about the coaches, that's great, but I don't even know that these coaches are going to stay here.
You don't know that they're not going to stay here.
You're right. So the answer is, who knows?
No,
you don't know.
No.
Jay Hill's not going to get a head coaching job somewhere and be gone this year, next year, at some point. I mean, the answer is, who knows? How long is Kyle going to coach?
Yeah, but that
everything changes. Everything changes when coaches change. There are rare exceptions. John Robinson, we just mentioned in the last segment, he continued USC's glory. He took over. It can happen.
You have so much knowledge of what the institutions, and I'm speaking of the program, not the universities, what these programs are about, that they continue on. Jay Hill is great, but Jay Hill, without Jay Hill, they'd be 5-5? No.
The defense wouldn't be as good. And they won by 1 point. I mean, who wins that game? I have no idea.
What's interesting to me is you say you just don't know. But you would say that with Jay Hill not there, the defense wouldn't be as good. You just told me that you really don't know because with coaching changes, you don't know. But now you just told me with Jay Hill that the defense without him would be less. So how do you know that when you just told me all this stuff that you don't know, but if Jay Hill wasn't there, they would be worse? I don't get it. That doesn't make sense to me. If you don't know, how do you know this if you don't know that and know this and this and that? That's confusing to me. How do I know that if Jay Hill wouldn't have taken that job, they wouldn't have got somebody who's better than Jay Hill?
I don't think there's that many people who are better than Jay Hill, so I think it's unlikely.
Wow.
But you're right. I don't know it.
Well, then don't tell me that the defense would be worse.
Well, I'm not going to sit here quietly for 4 hours. So I'll tell you what I suspect, but I don't know it.
No,
I knew this would be the argument.
You
and
said
you're right.
suspect. Now you backed off. I can live with suspect, but you didn't say suspect. You said that the defense wouldn't be as good without Jay Hill.
I believe
that. Right. You believe, but you said you stated as a factual statement.
College football is volatile, baby.
I think the defense wouldn't be as good.
Okay, I amend it, I think.
I will accept that.
Thank you. Gosh, I feel better.
That
I'm
makes
so glad
sense.
I got out of bed even though I was beaten down at 6 a.m.
You're never beaten down.
Well, sometimes I am.
And no, because the final analysis is we're talking about sports. Now, I know you've been beaten down some other areas in recent days, but you'll get over that.
Probably.
I just think the philosophies of the programs will continue. Without Kyle Whittingham, the philosophy of the program will be the exact same. In fact, I might say it'd be better. How do I know it won't be better?
You don't know.
I don't know.
But you suspect it won't be better.
Maybe Scally is going to open it up more and stop defense first. If you're good enough, we'll move you at our side of the ball. Or maybe he's even more. He takes Whittingham and moves it more to that direction.
Now you're scaring Utah fans. The offense won't even get first downs.
I mean, it's clear offensively they need to take another step or two. Not just this year, obviously this year.
But big picture.
Yeah. And they've got to find a way to not have themselves in the position that they were in this year and last year. You can't pin it on one guy. And then he goes away.
There's too many injuries in the sport to have everything hanging on one guy.
You have them,
and yet
you had them last week at 7-1 if Rising would have played. Mm-hmm. That's 8 games. Now that they've played 9 games, if Rising had played all 9, what would you have them?
8-1.
8-1. The Ute has gotten them beating the Cougars with Cam Rising. How did I not know that?
The next time they score 24 points against a Big 12 opponent this year will be the first time they've scored 24 points. Rising seemed to roll out of bed, and they scored 24 points all the time.
Considering he played 0 Big 12 teams.
Right. but the Pac-12
on an assumption.
Some of the Pac-12 teams are the Big 12 teams. You get the point. I mean, you can quibble over details if you want. Yes, he did it in the Pac-12.
Right. And the one Pac-12 team he played, he did not score that many points. So if I go on evidence, you're 0 for 1.
If he was healthy, PK, and that is actually the one game I've told you that I don't know that they would have won
but
anyway.
You said he would roll out of bed and score 24 points. He rolled out of bed, and they didn't score 24 points.
And his ankle was jacked up and his hand was jacked up. He has to be healthy in playing.
Well,
you can't just pop up the decaying corpse of a quarterback.
Whittingham and the trainers and the medical people deemed him healthy.
Right.
I only know what I see.
And what we saw was him not moving very well and not throwing the ball.
But
like
he was
Cam
deemed
Rising.
healthy.
I know he was. Yeah.
But you just told me if he was healthy. You quoted somebody who went to Duquesne or something. What did you just say?
Duquesne?
Yeah, what'd you say?
I don't know. You've lost me. Why,
why
a random school in Pittsburgh?
What did you just say?
You're doing name association stuff.
No, I'm not. You just said something fancy. It's something I didn't understand. If he was deemed, you used some fancy term. You just used it.
I don't know.
I'll have to go back later tonight and listen to it.
Don't do that.
I mean, it was over my head.
Don't do that.
I mean, you do
You went
that.
to the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism. How can it be over your head?
Because we're taught to write and broadcast to like a 7th grade level so everybody can understand it. I didn't go to a highfalutin school like you.
My school's either highfalutin or a party school, depending on the day.
Well, you think it's highfalutin. My school didn't produce Jim Rome.
College football is volatile. We don't really know what's coming. To the point that, to your point, that we know these two programs better than we know most programs. We think they're in a pretty good spot, and they're going to stay in a pretty good spot. But we didn't know when the Cougars were 5-2, they were about to be 5-7.
But the thing that I don't think you're getting is you're dealing with the LDS kid, right? And you go back to the 90s in basketball, the Johnson family, Alex Jensen, and so forth. There's a possibility that if the roles were reversed, they would have gone to BYU. But they had no choice.
Right.
So now these LDS kids, for the last decade, who wanted to play football at the highest level, had no choice if they wanted to stay in state or come to Utah if they're out of state.
And now they have a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
which is why the leveling makes sense to me.
That's where it can be swing.
Right.
That's where West Virginia doesn't come into play because they don't have that.
And the other thing that helps with the leveling concept is the NIL money and the playing time and the transfer portal. So if you go to one place and it doesn't work, boom, you can move to another. It makes it really hard to have depth because guys don't seem to be accepting that. Now, some teams have it in some positions. There's no doubt.
The same teams are in the top 10 every year.
Well, the same teams are in the top 10 last. I mean, Michigan was 15-0 last year, and now they're 5-5.
Right.
Florida
But
State
you just
was
told me when you have a
13-1,
coaching
and now they're
change,
1-9.
everything goes away.
And so, if you succeed, you're at the risk of having a coaching change. Even if you're Michigan, the NFL comes calling. Oklahoma was awesome, and they lost their coach to USC. Notre Dame was awesome and lost their coach to LSU.
Right.
So even when you succeed, you can lose
Notre
your coach.
Dame, they're not awesome?
They did. It was a bump, but they're still pretty good. Yeah. I mean, they're losing to Northern Illinois, so they grumble about that, but they only got one loss.
They're a top 10 team.
I know they are.
Who doesn't take that?
Notre Dame fans who won a national championship who grumble about their
you
coach.
don't win a national championship in November.
Not yet. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone.
Another edition of the Holy War is in the books. And your home for all the best coverage of another chapter of BYU versus Utah was right here on the KSL Sports Zone.
Retzlaff goes down. Reed got to him. There is a flag in the secondary. I think this one's going against Utah.
Defense number 5. 10-yard penalty.
Whoa.
Automatic first down.
Snap, hold, kick, on the way. Kick is good! The game was over, and somehow BYU, given new life, has a 1-point lead and is 3 seconds away from improving to 9-0.
This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. We won this game. Someone else stole it from us.
As we enter the stretch run of the 24th season, the best coverage of the Utes and Cougars is on air, online, and on the KSL Sports app. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The band of the day today is Rise Against. And it is brought to you by Live Nation. For all the live concerts and events in 2024, check out livenation.com.
Did we drop the machine?
No, that's Rage Against the Machine. This is Rise Against. They're coming here in concert pretty quick.
Breaking news from Chicago, the Bears have fired their offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron, out.
Sucks for him.
Yep, there you go. PK, you saw the national reaction Monday to the end of the Utah-BYU game as everybody got back to their regularly scheduled TV shows, radio shows, podcasts.
Yeah.
Anybody catch your eye?
I like listening to Joel Klatt. I think he does a great job. And he's got a podcast. He comes on with your boy, The Herd, on Wednesdays at 11. I try to get home on Wednesdays and watch it live. I just appreciate his style. And plus, he's a college football guy. I mean, he doesn't do anything else.
That's his wheelhouse.
Yeah. So he was saying yesterday that he compared it to minor league baseball, minor league baseball because that's what he played.
Mm-hmm.
He was a quarterback too for I think Colorado there, and he was saying that you established a strike zone, and you don't call that pitch if you haven't called it all game. You don't call it in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, and so he was saying that they shouldn't have called that because they hadn't called it all game, so don't call it then, and I disagree with that.
Because you just disagree with everything?
I disagree with that.
I see what you're doing there. You love your baseball analogies. As soon as you were saying it was a baseball analogy, I'm like, well, he's going to agree with the baseball analogy. You love baseball analogies.
The reason why I will tell you that is that you're talking about a pitch, so essentially it's, a couple inches off the plate.
Mm-hmm. Right. The low strike or the outside strike, whatever.
We can all relate to that. Right. So you don't call that. I get that. I agree with that. But the thing about which I think was going through the ref's mind is, okay, if you're a couple inches off to keep the analogy, if you're a couple inches off the zone, I'm not going to call it. But this pitch was way off the zone. So that's why I called it. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
It wasn't a close call.
In the referee's mind, I'd let that stuff go all game, but not this one. Because if I'm a DB and I grab you and hold you
you by the jersey, once the guy stumbles and the timing of the route is disrupted, it's no longer just an inch off the plate. Now it's 8 inches off the plate.
Exactly.
Right.
That's my line of thinking, is that the referee thought, no, I didn't call that other stuff, but this one was too far over the line. You were at the line and I let you go. This time you went over the line.
DJ and PK, when we come back, Frank Dolce, former Ute quarterback. We'll talk about the rivalry game. We will look ahead to the trip to Colorado. Can Utes get bowl eligible? Can they stop this streak? Or is Colorado going to make it 6 in a row, which would be Kyle's longest losing streak in his 20 years on the job? We'll talk with Frank Dolce next.